City's most recent Baldwinsville Community Update. I'm your host, Shelley Hoffman. Hi, everybody, and hi, Mayor Dick Clarke on this beautiful day. How are you?
Good, Shelley. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I turned my computer this time so I could look out the window. So even though I can't be outside enjoying it, I can see the river, I can see the sun, I can see people going to San Miguel's or wherever it is they're off to walking around. So a little bit envious today, but at least I get to see it.
Hey, who knew at this time of year people were already joking about summer's ready to start.
You should have seen Foxfire. I got off of 690 on Van Buren Road, and there was golfers like ants all over the golf course, just everywhere you looked.
and while the golf courses are benefiting, the ski slopes are probably suffering a little bit, and I feel bad for the snowmobilers and the cross-country skiers and those kind of people.
Yeah.
Amazingly, there is some snow if you go north a little bit. We just have been in that pocket. I mean, Buffalo is still 30 inches over normal because of that snow they got in before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Around that time. And, we just haven't had, and I'm not complaining, but we haven't had that knockout snowstorm. And, we usually get one where you get 14, 15 inches and it takes you a couple of days to get everything cleared up. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that I'm sure people would wonder, what are the snowplow crews doing? The village guys haven't had to plow very often. We have had to put salt down.
I'm going to share this comment from your sister real quick. Apparently, Cindy says, "Good morning. Got my bathing suit out today."
That's scary.
Oh, Cindy, you cracked me up.
But to rest assured that our guys are not sitting around playing, checkers or something like that. They've been very busy replacing fire hydrants. If anybody lives over on Canton Street or had to drive Canton Street, we have that big claw that picks up the brush. Mm-hmm. They used it to go over and grab a hold of a tree, and they pulled the tree right out of the ground. All these trees that are like right along the side of Canton Street, and the branches hang over the road. And our guys know about it because when they plow, the branches probably hit the windows. If a car's driving, it probably wasn't going to be much of a factor, but so they clean brush all from one side of Canton Street, past the senior center almost out to 690, that whole side of the road. And Chuck said they had truckloads of brush and small trees and stuff that they got out of there, which will make it so much better come summertime. Yeah. And it's one of those things that in the summer we have so much we have to do because you have to have warm weather, that normally this is the last thing on the list, and then all of a sudden it's snowing and you don't get it done.
Yeah.
So this year they're getting it done. And again, fire hydrants that have had to be replaced. We've done a couple of those. So some things, our guys are busy. And every time it rains and gets a little threatening to be icy, you see the trucks going up and down the street dropping salt. So that's kept them busy. So we have used some salt, but it's been crazy. I can't remember a winter like this ever. I mean, we've had some mild winters, and we were talking back when in 1987, we had just moved in here on Braeside, and Syracuse played in the Final Four, and that was in March, and it was like 77 degrees on the day they won to get into the championship game. We had all the windows open in the house. I had shorts on. I mean, it was March, not February, but if you check every night on the weather, they'll always say the warmest day, and because everybody thinks it's all the warm days are now. But if you look in 1918, it was 68 degrees on this day or something like that. And so if you keep track of that and realize we've had warm days in the past, just not as many in a row, I think. Yeah. But I saw next week, one day it's going to be low of 18 and then a low of 16 overnight, so we're going to get some frost and maybe some snow. We're not out of the woods yet.
I was talking to one of my friends, when I want to know what the weather is, I call my friend Mark, who plows and, puts salt out and stuff. And he said he'll be going to bed early Thursday and Friday just to make sure he doesn't have to get up, because it could get could get cold and icy. So
Yep.
he's kind of like, to me, he's better than the weatherman, because those guys need to know, just like Chuck, right? They need to know when they got to be maybe up in the middle of the night, and so they pay attention to the weather.
Yep. And they usually have a weather source that's even a little better than the TV guys who are doing for, a general whole area kind of thing. And they can get specifics for our area, because Chuck will say, nah, not supposed to be a problem. Or, yeah, it's supposed to get pretty icy in the middle of the night. And the police, generally are pretty good about calling the DPW and saying, don't know if you realize it, but it's gotten quite cold and it's getting pretty slippery.
Oh,
And then
true.
Chuck or somebody can put a call in to get a truck out and run up and down the streets before people head out for work. This morning, I got a notification from the water department or from the village hall water, the people who do the water stuff for our billing, and that our bill was twice what it was the quarter before, which typically means you have a water leak somewhere. So I immediately called Chuck to see what you do for that. And he sent me down in the basement and looked at the meter, and he said, there's this little red triangle, because I took a picture of it. He said, see that triangle? If that's moving, there's water running somewhere. Well, it was turning. It wasn't speeding around, but it was turning. So he said, turn the valve off on your toilet, and if you go back later and the water's gone, then there's a leak, and that keeps putting water in to keep it filled up. And then you can know where your problem is and call for a plumber to come and fix it. So just to that point being made, to let people know that if you have a problem, if you hear water running, or if you get your water bill and it's high, much higher than normal, first of all, take a look and see if maybe one of your outside faucets is leaking. Water softeners are notoriously bad for leaks. It's good to check them, and and call the village. The water people will give you advice on how to try to detect where your problem is and what step to take next. So that's one of those services that are available. I mean, it's not just because I called, but anybody that would call, they would give you the same advice. So
that is good to know. What do they got for my National Grid bill doubling? Anything on that one?
No, I have got no advice there.
All right.
Turn the heat down. This is one of those get the bad news out of the way before you get any more good news. I say bad news. Taxes will be mailed out the 27th of this month. Just happens to be my sister Cindy's birthday.
Happy birthday, Cindy. I'll be thinking of you that day.
If you pay it, you pay from March 1st to April 1st, no penalty. After April 1st, you get penalized for being late. So you have a whole month to get your payments in and get the services that we talk, the police service, the plowing your streets, the picking up of the brush, all the things that go on that take care of our village residents. They don't happen for free. And it's nice that we have a way to take care of that. And that's pay your taxes, and that balances our budget. Your taxes, the rate, is down about 60 cents a thousand. So people could know it. And I'm not sure how that changing in assessments is all going to work, but your taxes probably shouldn't go up much at all, if any. And I hope people get a break. It's been a tough time, and hopefully with this inflation, at least they can look at the village and say, well, they didn't hurt us, And February 27th is a magical day for the court. Cheryl Adsit, our court clerk, says let people know that the court office will be closed from February 27th to March 13th. They can email Cheryl at the clerk's office, or if you want to pay your bill, you can put it in the drop box. It's outside the door. And her email is on the website. So if you go on the village website and look up court, you can get Cheryl's email. So my guess is it sounds like maybe she's on vacation, but not leaving the area, so that she would be available for questions. And the election is the 16th, I think, of March. I shouldn't say that until I'm 100% sure. But the only office on the ballot is the judge. So,
Okay.
we're looking for a code officer. Now that's not something that just everybody would say, oh, that, I've done that before. Uh, it's a pretty specific job, but if that's something, it's the kind of job we can hire somebody who does not have a certification, and then they have to take a class and get certified. But
What are the requirements for that job? Like, what do you look for in that person?
First of all, you have somebody who's aggressive, but understanding, because you need to be out and tell people they got garbage in their yard and it can't be there. Or if you see somebody starting to build something and you don't have a permit in your hand for it, then you have to go in and put a stop work order on it. So you get into some dicey situations, but you have the law behind you. It's a lot of it. Somebody said, well, do you really need a code officer? Well, if you want to have a village that has any kind of pattern on the way you operate, the things you've had to go through to get to things done on your house or your yard or whatever. You go get a code, you call the code office and ask for advice. It sets a standard for your community, and the code officer is in charge of upholding that standard. People want to have chickens in the village. Well, our code says no farm animals. So it's up to the code officer, if somebody calls and says, my neighbor has chickens, now to go and check it out and then send them a letter. And if they don't follow that, then you start telling them you're going to get fined every day for not getting rid of your chickens. And it could be as simple as putting a wheelchair ramp up to your front porch. We've made it now so the code officer can just okay that. It doesn't have to go in front of the planning or zoning board to get approval. A lot more to the job. I mean, our code is pretty extensive. Swimming pool regulations, how far the pool has to be from your house, the electrical part of it that has to be inspected. So you have to know a little bit about electrical, mechanical, different things like that. You have to have a thick skin, because people don't like it when you tell them, you built something that we didn't have a permit for, and you're going to get, we're taking you to court and you're going to get fined for it. Greg is done next week. We are going to consider the possibility of him working for us part-time, like after hours, coming in and going through, maybe having a couple permits that need to be looked at to get okayed. And so we will not be without a code officer. So don't go ahead and start building things that you think you can get away with.
Were you reading my mind, Mayor?
Yeah, well, but we have a municipal agreement with both Lysander and Van Buren to share code officers in emergencies, so that if somebody were to call us after Greg is gone and say, we'd like to open up this new part of our house, can we get somebody to come over here and say that it's okay? Well, we could hopefully call Lysander and say, could you have your guy just go over and check that out and make sure it meets standards, because they have the same standards generally. The electrical standards, that type of stuff are the same. Some of the stuff, if somebody's got garbage piled up on their front porch, our Chuck or somebody from the DPW can go over and say, yep, they got garbage. And at that point, we can write them a letter and, tell them it's got to be removed or they're going to get fined. We don't need a code officer to do that. There are some things that has to be specifically code officer, but hopefully we'll have enough coverage between Greg part-time and the two municipalities. Now, Van Buren has a new code officer, so I'm not sure there'll be any ability to get any use out of that. Our attorney at the last board meeting, Joe Frateschi, said that Salina has made their code guy available. Now, I am assuming that that's a paid thing. He'll give you 4 hours on a Saturday or something and come in and you pay him for 4 hours. You pay them and then they pay him. The exchange with the two towns was generally, we won't charge you, but don't you charge us, and unless it's going to be extensive. And then you might say, well, if he's going to miss doing work for our community, that as much as it looks like, we would like you to pay part of his salary, which is part of the agreement. So we will have coverage, and there'll be Mary Augustus is in the code office, and she's there all day between there and being a information clerk for the clerk's office. She's there to answer phones all day long. She has the applications for permits. If you need to go to the planning board and stuff, she can set that up. So we should be okay, and hopefully we can find somebody that wants that job and wants to come to work in a nice, quiet village. So that's one of the things we have going with us. We're also looking for a planning board alternate. Planning board makes decisions on, how much, like when that Phillip Street project was going through, the planning board considered whether or not to rezone that area and then sent recommendations to our board. The La Madre way by St. Mary's Apartments, they're talking about building some apartments there that would include some apartments for people with disabilities who are working but need a little special place to live. That was already okayed by the code that was set up for that property. So it went to the planning board, and they just said, well, we think you need to do this, this, and this, but otherwise you're all set. But they can't proceed without a planning board okay. We have an alternate who now has moved into Mike Mazaway's spot. I think Mike is actually on board till next week. And so we would like to get another alternate so that if somebody is sick or has to go out of town for work, we don't go short on our planning board. So if anybody's interested, contact Village Hall, ask for me, and we'll talk and see whether or not it's a good fit. Let's see here. I mentioned court. One of the interesting things that we had last week, we had a discussion, Bruce Stebbins and I, and then Chuck was involved with a little bit of it, but he had another commitment. But there's a company that sets up kayak rentals, very similar to communities that have bicycle rentals. Or, you just go up to this spot, and I guess there's a way to unlock the bike from where it's locked up, and then you ride it across the city to where you're going, and there's a place in all parts of the city to leave it. Apparently in Syracuse, and I've never seen it, I don't go in the city much, but there's a scooter rental. And people said, oh yeah, you're in the city, you see scooters all over the place. Well, this is very similar to that. So you would show up, let's say at Community Park, and there'd be this caged looking thing with gates to open up each section of the cage. You put your phone up, there's a QR code that activates it and starts timing on your credit card must be in. Now you open the door, you pull out the kayak, it's got a paddle, and it's got a life jacket. You go out, you paddle for 2 hours, you come back, you put it in. I think you do your phone again, and it registers that it's back. And then they bill your credit card for the 2 hours that you had it out. So there'd be like 4 of them. And if you have a lot of use, they put another thing of cages in, so you might have 8 of them. So that if Shelley says, I've never been on a kayak, I'd like to try it. I don't want to go. They're expensive. I don't want to go buy one. Right. So you and your buddy go down and you take out 2 of them. You go paddle your way along the river and go some of the inlets and see the geese and the swans and come back and say, well, that was lovely. And put your kayaks back and your life jackets back and lock it up. And your credit card will come back with a bill for 2 hours of use or however long you have it. And so there is a financial commitment on the part of the village for 5 years. And then what they do is all the money made by the kayaks is split in half, and they get half and the village would get half. So we'd get some of that investment back. But when you do things for parks, you understand that you put in swings, it might cost you $5,000 to put a swing set in. You don't get any money back on that. we put in that new playground down at Community Park, and we invested county money and some of our money and the Lions Club money. There's no fee to use the stuff, so you don't. But that's the way parks work.
Right. Yep.
You pave the road, you don't charge people to drive on it.
And I can tell you that people have asked me, because I have, the Airbnb up across in the Cross Lake, and they say, is there any place to rent kayaks? And the answer is pretty much there's not, so it would be nice for it just be one more thing the village could offer, because we are on the waterway.
Yep.
So,
and a lot of discussion on which park would be the best. There is some concern at Mercer Park that if somebody has never used a kayak and get overpowered by the current and end up going down towards the dam, that's a bit of a scary proposition. And if you go Community Park, you're downstream, and there's a current, but it's not as rough as before the dam. And so that's something we're going to talk about at the meeting Thursday night and see what everybody else thinks. I thought it was a fairly interesting project. It's like $16,000 for 5 years. Is that too much? I don't know, but we'll talk it over. But it is something we're thinking about.
Yeah.
And we always are looking, as you said, for one more thing to make the community just that much more sustainable. We don't have to go other places. We have kayaks now here. They don't have to go to a place somewhere else to get a kayak. We are considering an exemption for firefighters and EMS people, volunteers, not paid people, for their on their 10% exemption on their assessed evaluation of their property. Okay. So if they have a house that's $100,000, they pay on $90,000.
Yep.
As our attorney had said, it's not a huge request by people, because they can also get a break on their income tax, which is a bigger break. You only can do one of the two. So I suppose if you don't pay income tax and you own a house, I don't know how that would work. How you own a house if you didn't pay any income tax, have a salary, but you might choose it. I suppose maybe if it's just nice to say to them, we recognize your commitment to our community, and we want to offer this as a reward. It's set up. It's nothing that we created. It would just be something we would be a part of. So we'll talk about that Thursday night. We're still waiting to hear on the Main Street grants. We have another round. I think we had 8 or 9 businesses that submitted. We're still finishing off from the first one because of the COVID. And then the second one, obviously, we're still working on. But again, we're so pleased that to be able to look at the fact that almost all of our village will have been reshaped by the time we get done with these Main Street grants.
Yeah. I don't know if he's completely done yet, but Tim Noble, the Nobles Plaza, the auto,
Yep.
Nobles, that looks great. I don't know if you've driven past it lately, but it definitely has a new, fresh look. And I know he was in the first round with me, but, contracting and, a lot of roadblocks with him and the design and whatnot. So I know he's very happy that if it's not at the end, it's very close to being at the end. It looks great.
I'll have to go check that out. I haven't been over that way, in a couple of weeks to see anything. So, and people that are doing some of this stuff got to be getting a great break with this weather.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, today, if you had somebody working on your property, to know that they might be able to put in 8 or 9 hours of work and make a big dent. Trying to think if there was anything else. Yes, we do have Canton Woods is Music and Fun for March. They're going to have the Bare Bones Trombone Quartet on the 15th of March, sponsored by the Public Library.
Nice.
It'll be at Canton Woods. St. Patrick's Day, the Merlin of Merry Mischief Musical Entertainment will be there. St. Patrick's Day is usually a pretty good day over there. They have a lot of fun. On Monday the 13th, I'm a little bit out of order, but the Bringing Bluebirds Back to Baldwinsville, a special presentation by Roger Dalen. And so I'm assuming it'll be a discussion on how to set up birdhouses and stuff to attract bluebirds, because they like special type of housing, and that would be kind of interesting. And all of them are set up. They're all in the morning, and they're all on days when lunch is being served. So somebody could sign up for the activity, or I don't even know if you have to sign up, but you should at least call and see if you do, and then sign up for lunch right afterwards and make a day of it.
Nice.
And that's the Senior Center at 638-4536. And if people are looking for something to do for the community, we get it all the time. I've got a couple of Girl Scouts who have achieved new levels by doing something for the community that I send out letters of recognition. And that's always, it makes you feel good. And a lot of times you recognize the names of people you know, and it's their kid, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for something to do for the village and the environment, to go along with Earth Day, there's a canal clean sweep. You can do it at any time, but it's kind of set up for the 21st through the 23rd of April. And you get a group, and you pick a date and a location, and then you register. If anybody's interested, contact me. You can register with the Parks and Trails of New York. And so one year I know that was Ruth Seco, Linda Ross, and Anna Custer and I went down at the end of Marble Street, what we call the Spit. And we went down through, and we had garbage bags and picked up cups and all. I mean, you just can't imagine the stuff you find, and particularly at the end of the winter, when people have thrown stuff out there in the snow, and then it just kind of gets buried. So you pick up somewhere along the canal. Could be Mercer Park, could be along by the cemetery, could be Community Park, could be along the trail behind the post office down in that area, and you get recognized by the state. And usually we have a deal where we tell people when you bag it up, put it in a certain location, and then like that Monday, the DPW will go around with a truck and throw all the bags on the back of the truck. Sometimes we ask them to take the bags over by Village Hall, so we make sure to find them.
Yeah.
But it's a real nice way to contribute to the community and to your state, and it's all on areas that the public uses. So, and you for Earth Day, if you want to do something else, and you want to clean up under the bridge, by Sheehan's, that's always a mess under there. People go in and spray paint the mess on the walls. Earth Day is a real nice thing, and Baldwinsville usually responds, but this is a little extra. And you get recognized. I think you get T-shirts from the state that you're a part of this. So that's why they want you to register early. So if you contact me, I'll get you hooked up with the Parks and Trails. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Pretty much covered everything. Busy. I mean, it's always busy. People will say, what's going on around the village? It's kind of quiet, isn't it? So, not really. And I'm sure the spring sports teams are starting to gear up. Their practice probably comes in about 2 weeks, the first day of practice. So you'll start seeing lacrosse players running around the parking lots, and the baseball players out playing catch. And, hopefully we don't get a huge snow like the beginning of March, and half of March is wasted can't be outdoors, but make the most of what you got. It's nice now. Get in a walk and go down by the river and see the eagles. And a friend of mine posted a picture the other day of she lives over in the apartments on John Glenn when you turn off of 370, and it's right by the river. And she said that she happened to be outside, and there were 2 eagles up in the trees down there. But there's a lot of eagles behind St. Mary's Church down in that area. It's worth the effort to take the walk.
Yep, it is. And And we try, we don't promote too much business stuff on here, but in case people were wondering, if you didn't see it anywhere else, the Angry Smokehouse is opening next week.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
that'll be really nice. Just again, thinking of nice weather, like a day like today, another place in the village where you can sit outside
Yeah.
and, watch the water, watch the eagles. I think Jeff told me in an interview, it holds like 92 people on that huge deck over there. And then he's going to have Adirondack chairs with fire pits. I did ask if you could reserve those. He said they're first come, first serve. So if you see me sending Taylor down early on a really nice evening.
You see kids on their phone texting people going, oh, there's a fire pit? Oh, I didn't even know
that. So it again, just another, we have so many great businesses and things to do in the village. You're talking about kayaks, but it's space that people always say, why is that space not being used? It's a perfect location, in the village. So Jeff posted some pictures online that it looks amazing inside, but honestly, it's the outside that I'm looking forward to as well.
And it's been a shame because that is so visible to all the boaters coming through and that place sitting empty. And the people who stay overnight, it was nice because they could just walk down and now it'll be really nice because I'm sure he's going to have music and his food is always great. And if you get there and it's packed, there's all the other places in the village will have hoping you come to see them. I can never say it enough. I talk to people from outside and they'll say, well, what's special about your little village? I said, well, if you just want to start with restaurants, we don't do bad. No. We've got some great places to eat, people who really know how to run businesses. There's so many good places to get pizza. Mm-hmm. I saw the other day, again, they keep seeing pictures of the Big Mac pizza that Sal's has, where
yes.
They put all the ingredients from a Big Mac on it. Somebody said the only thing missing was sesame seeds. But everybody's always thinking, what can we do different? Mm-hmm. What can we do to make people want to come here? And I see pictures of these places at certain nights. Like there's trivia night I know at Pizza Man, and it's wall to wall people. They did well through COVID. They found ways to survive. And now that things are a bit quieter, they're doing good. And if you read constantly on Syracuse.com, the restaurants in Armory Square that have shut down, in other parts of the city, outside the city, places that just didn't make it through COVID. They tried and they were hoping they could bounce back. I don't think our places had the same problems. I mean, I know in the wintertime was tough, but God, they had those outside seating right up till, the first blizzard seemed like,
yeah. Well, and talking about things coming back, Matt had just posted the chamber luncheons. We're back to meeting in person for the chamber and having those events. So he said we're at Sal's on the 28th of February. He doesn't think it's going to be the Big Mac pizza, but throwing that out there if you're watching, Sal, just be nice to taste it. But to your point, even like BG1, the menu is always changing. I met Stephanie Long, who I know there, for lunch last week. And I always look at the menu, but I get the Delightful, which is a cauliflower crust pizza, every time I go. And I look at that menu for 3 or 4 minutes, and everything looks so good, but I think I'm addicted to that particular pizza at BG1. And I'm like, when you love it, I just can't seem to pull she had beef Wellington, I think, that day, but it's unique, to your point. It's not just the same. You got to think about what kind of food do you want. And then that kind of brings you, we got Sal. He said, we'll bring you guys one soon. Perfect, Sal. Thank you. But it's all different, so that's what I love. You have to stop and think, not only where do you want to go, but what do you want to eat? Because,
with that little spot right next to the old Titcombs, which had the small plates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Danny's.
I had never been to a place that did that. I mean, I'm an old-fashioned guy, and and my wife has gluten issues, so we don't go out to eat a lot. But I went there for, I think it was my niece Kim's birthday, and they said, "Okay, what are we going to order?" And I'm looking, and I'm not sure how this works. They said, well, we just order these plates and it comes like with 8 things on it or 12 or, small. And you just send the plate around and everybody grabs one off. And I mean, the plates just kept coming and the stuff was delicious. It was really good. And I thought, well, I might be getting older, but it's not bad to have new experiences. And I thought, I wonder how many people realize, and I'm sure there's a lot more than I knew that have had that experience, but you hear that kind of stuff in New York City and San Francisco, and the in crowd just sits and gets these little plates and shares with everybody. But I'd never heard of it in Baldwinsville, so I was very impressed. Just doesn't seem like there's any place you go that doesn't have something a little unique. And the people who run them, I remember during COVID contacting different people, including Chris Whiteman at the Atlantic Seafood and stuff, and just saying, how is everybody doing? And they had set up, everybody waited outside in line. And I went by on a Friday one time when it was miserable weather, and there were 30 people in line with umbrellas. And they had a window outside, I guess, that you ordered at. And then you went up by the door and they brought it. You went in one at a time and paid for it. And I thought, see, everybody recreated themselves. They reinvented themselves in different ways. It was fun to drive. It still is fun. I remember when Jeff came to us and said, what's the possibility of having some outside seating? And the chief and I sat with him and talked, and just the only stipulation we had was it can't be a place just to drink.
Yeah.
We don't want a table full of people with a pitcher of beer and that's all they're doing. If they have a drink to go with their meal, no problem. And if they want to sit around after they eat and have a drink, nobody's going to question that. But people got to be able to say to them, we can't have you just sitting here drinking, because people driving by and, people are going to start yelling at somebody and now you got people jumping out of cars and you got a street ball or something. And first of all, Jeff was so insistent that none of that was going to happen and never did.
Right.
And he did a great job. But it's nice in the summertime. I remember the diner had the tents out behind that people sat outside and ate there. Different places, Dennis Sick has the little platform between the buildings where people could sit outside there. So people did things that they had to do to make it work. And of course, the River Grill has the outside decks that people could sit out there.
Well, and I didn't know that Sammy Malone's, he had plans for doing what he did being COVID, like some outdoor seating and some stuff on the back patio. It just kind of pushed the plans along a little bit, right? Yeah. Whether they were approved or not, I don't know, but they were definitely up in his head. Tommy had been telling me about it, or Tom. But but even that, and then it stays, right? So it came during COVID. Not the tent went away because Beeville Diner needs the parking and whatnot, but a lot of the other stuff, it stayed. It became part of their business plan, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting to go by and see people sitting at the tables in front of Sammy's, right there. People coming across the bridge, walking by. People would, you could see people going, "Wow, that wouldn't be very cool," but it is. People walking think it's really cool to see people sitting there eating, and the people eating see people walking and kind of wave to them as they walk by. It's nice it can work that way.
When Taylor was delivering pizzas for Pizza Man back and forth, she said the people outside of Sammy's were cheering her on every time one guy was tallying, every time she went past. So, it became a fun environment through that as well. Yep.
And it speaks a lot for our community, not only the business people, but the people within the community. I didn't hear a lot of griping. I know that you read something like, for instance, Angry Garlic would say, if you call between 6 and 8 for dinner between 6 and 8, you're going to be disappointed. You need to call us at 4 o'clock to say you want dinner at 6:30, because otherwise we are so backed up. We apologize, and I didn't hear people going, well, that's stupid, or, they didn't get in my business. People just did what they had to do to get through. And here we are now, everybody survived. And I hope, things are better for everybody and that they're making a nice profit. And a nice thing about some of our businesses is they take time off. I know that the Garlic does that for Christmas. They took a week off. I know that Michelle down at the cottage always takes the fair week off because she said, a lot of the people that come in here go to the fair. And it's a chance for our people to have time off and go to the fair or schedule a vacation. That's the way you have good, happy employees. And so it's a real nice coming together of the community and the businesses. And I just hope it keeps up. I mean, I give a lot of credit to the people behind it and the people that have supported it. And it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. And before we get off, someone did ask, what is the date of the opening for the Angry Smokehouse? And it's the 21st, which I put into the comments as well. But okay. So I don't know what the wait time or any of that stuff's going to be. And the other I can't wait for is when Sal's opens the other side of theirs, which I'm hoping is in a month, maybe two. I'm giving them maybe 2 more months, and then I'm going to start heckling them to see when that's going to be open too. Just there's expansion and growth. That we say it all the time, Mayor. It's just booming here, and new things are coming in, and you know what I mean. People are kind of working together, which I love. So.
Yep.
All right. Anything else for us today, sir?
I don't think so. I think we've covered the big ones. And, there's other stuff that would take too much time explaining everything. Not worth. People aren't looking for that. But if we have a board meeting tomorrow night at 7:30. The public has been showing up, and it's always interesting. Sometimes they're busier than others.
Yeah. I keep saying I'm going to start coming to the meetings here and the meetings in the town of Lysander, but you haven't seen me in one yet. So we'll see when that happens. But it's always in my head to come, but
we do see you here.
That is true. So, all right. Well, enjoy this beautiful day. I'm going to try and get out. Allie wants to go to not rollerblading. She skateboards. She wants to go skateboarding somewhere. So I'm going to find time for that today.
Very good.
All right.
Have fun.
Thanks. Bye, Mayor.
Bye-bye.